Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way morning briefing. It's Monday, the 25th of August, the start of a new week, the start of a big week for Celtic in all competitions. First of all, they've got FC Kairat tomorrow in the Champions League qualifying playoff second leg, and then at the weekend, there's just a small matter of a Glasgow derby against Rangers at Ibrox. Last weekend, it was a really successful one for Celtic. They won 3-0 against Livingston, while Rangers drew 1 each with St Mirren. Couple that with the fact that Hearts drew 3 each with Motherwell, and it was a good weekend all round domestically for Celtic in the Scottish Premiership. As I said before, my name's Ryan. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Kevin McKenna. Kevin, how are you doing this morning?
Aye, good, Ryan. Big week, as you said. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, but they're all big weeks, aren't they? That's the thing with Celtic, regardless.
It could be one of those, what do they call it, season-defining weeks.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Carlsberg, one of those Carlsberg weeks. I hope it is going to be the case. First of all, before we talk about the main story, which is breaking over the past couple of days, which is the arrival, seemingly the imminent arrival, finally, of Michel-Ange Balikwisha, I thought I would go back and speak about Saturday's game with you, Kevin, because you've not had the chance to speak on the channel yet about what you thought about Saturday's game. In the end, it was a 3-goal victory. It was nothing each at half time, but 2 goals from Benjamin Negrin and a late finish from Johnny Kenny coming off the bench made it, in the end, quite a comfortable victory for Brendan Rodgers' men against David Martindale's side. What did you make of the game, Kevin?
I thought that, although we were in at half time 0-0, I wasn't that worried. That I saw that a lot of people were going bananas, and they were turning their attention to the directors again. I actually thought they played quite good football in the first half, created loads of chances. You won't see a better save. You won't see a better save than that all season. I mean, that was Gordon Banks, Mexico 1970 save from it was Yamada, wasn't it? Sis header.
It was Yang.
Yang's header. The biggest concern for me is the fact that we're going into this massive season and our main striker hasn't scored a goal yet. I know there were all the changes for Saturday, but yeah, that worries me. I'm delighted that Kenny got his goal. That's his second goal. I quite like the look of him. Negrin's settling in really nicely. Yeah. Livingston are a difficult side to play against, as we've known, as Rangers know, as everybody knows. Martindale's got them well drilled. I would have taken 3-0 before it. And the fact that we did it with so many changes in view of the game on Tuesday, I think we can be quite happy with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with everything that you've said there. It was a really comfortable victory in the end for Celtic. 2 really good goals, 2 late finishes from Benjamin Negrin, and that seems like it's going to be a regular feature of his game, running into the box late, getting rebounds or rebounding shots and putting one in of his own. That second goal, though, I don't think there's been a better goal this season. I know that Celtic will maybe score more attractive goals, but in terms of the oomph that he gave that goal and the celebration as well, I think it was exactly what the doctor ordered after a bit of a tough week for Celtic, both in the Champions League and in the transfer market. There was that relief in the stadium when that second goal went in, and he certainly enjoyed it, didn't he, Benjamin Negrin?
Yeah, he's got a lot of energy. I remember you saying, was it you that was saying something last week or on another occasion that perhaps something that maybe our midfield lacks is that bit of bite, a little bit of kind of badness.
I was saying that about the striking position, but I agree in the midfield as well.
And I wonder if he's got that. He seems a bit of a character, a bit of a fight, and he's got good skills. The finish, I agree with you. The finish was great. Yeah, he could turn into a pivotal player this season for us.
Yeah, and it's looking like a bit of a bargain as well.
Mm.
The fee fluctuates depending on who you ask, but between 1.5 and 2 million, sometimes even when you ask somebody it's even lower than 1.5. But regardless of what that fee is, it looks as if it's a bargain because he's immediately making an impact in that midfield. He can play in a multitude of positions. He was playing a position that he has played before for the likes of Nordjylland and Heerenveen as well as his other club, Gothenburg. But yeah, he played out of position on Saturday, and he looked, maybe despite it not being his best area, it looked as if he could still do a job there, and that shows that he's filling in for the team, and he's versatile. And if players are versatile, then more often than not, it means that they'll get a chance in the team, and they'll get a run in the team regardless of where they're playing. I know he'd like to play as a number 10, and he kind of was cutting in where he was operating on the pitch. Even though he was out wide, he was operating in there because he turned into the number 10. It was a very fluid system that he was playing in, a fluid play style, but he had the desired impact. I thought he had quite a poor first half, but second half it was almost as if he was like, right, I'm going to let the quality shine through here, and he did. He got 2 goals, and 2 really good finishes as well. Two goals that you're happy to see watching on from the
Yeah.
stand. You want to see shots rebounded by players. You don't want people sitting on their or standing on their heels and waiting for something to happen. Force the issue, and he certainly did that. Was there anybody else that impressed you before we get on and talk about the upcoming fixture against Kairat? Was there anybody else that really stood out?
Yeah, I thought Chinyamada looks like a player. It was also, I was glad to see Yang, do quite well for the time he was on. I just thought there was a bit of fluency against a team that is set up to deny you fluency. That's always Livingston's first priority when he play us, and because Martindale's been there for years, he's got it off to a tee. That's the first thing they do. Try to stop you building play. Try to stop fluency, and the players we brought in so far. I know you and I have had our say, as has everybody else, about our regrettable lack of activity in the transfer market, which is, in my opinion, it's unjustifiable and it's irresponsible. But our new players, such as they are, I think are settling in quite nicely. And I know Kieran wasn't playing, but he's had a great start to the season as well. And I like the way that Rodgers is playing him, just with each successive game, 55 minutes, 65 minutes, 75, just kind of building it up. And we've scored 6 goals, none conceded in our opening 3 games. Admittedly, it's not the toughest start to a season we've had in terms of the league. I suppose there's one other concern, which is in each of those 3 games, and our League Cup game against Falkirk and the first leg of the European game, we've had the lion's share of possession. We've had 65, 70, 75% possession. And there's going to come a time, probably at Ibrox next week, where we're going to come under a bit of pressure, and we haven't faced that yet in any of those games. And then it comes down to the mental toughness of the squad and of the individual big players. Now, I know that nobody can question Callum McGregor's mental toughness because he's shown it, but I still have questions to ask over our mental character when it comes to being under the cosh a little bit, as will happen in parts of the game next Sunday. That's the only thing, but I'm sure Brendan Rodgers is aware of that yet as well. And as you said, Nygren looks as if he's got a bit of fire, a bit of the madness about him as well.
Yeah, I really enjoyed these celebrations because I think he was really getting into it. I think he wants that relationship with the supporters as well, which is
Mm,
good to see. I think
mm.
he's a player that feeds off of the energy from the stands, and he himself will be hearing the negativity coming from the stands about lack of transfers, etc., moaning and groaning. So when he heard that euphoric cheer from the crowd, he must have been like, "This is where I want to be. This is why
Mm.
I signed for Celtic." There was another point that just a wee quick point. I'm not sure if you saw the photos, Kevin, after the game on Saturday. They were doing the rounds yesterday, but there was a lovely moment in town in Glasgow at the Tron Gate on Saturday, and it seemed to be Daizen Maeda and Hayato Inamura helping the homeless in Glasgow as
Oh,
well.
I see.
They'd stopped
I missed
they'd
that.
stopped for they'd stopped for photos, and you can see Daizen Maeda because Daizen Maeda's got a picture with one of the workers that's helping, or one of the volunteers that's helping. But you can also see in the background Hayato Inamura, who's carrying Daizen Maeda's son while he's getting the picture taken. That just shows you how good these guys are to have around the club, and I
Mm.
understand. And despite Inamura only being at the club for just over a month, he already understands the charitable aspect of Celtic, and Daizen Maeda's following that aspect as well, which is great to see.
Yeah, it is. I'll need to have a look at that.
I'll send you the photo once this is over, but it's a great photo.
Yeah, I was doing something over the weekend about Hibs and their 150th anniversary and their connection to Leith, and how they're still embedded in the community of Leith, despite all the kind of gentrification that's going on. In that part, well, I was going to say that part of Edinburgh, but Leithers don't consider themselves to be part of Edinburgh, and we like to think that we've got the same with the East End of Glasgow. I've got kind of doubts with that because of the corporatism that has enveloped Celtic, and I wonder if the club's custodians are place as much importance on our connection to our roots and to that part of Glasgow, which still has some of the most stubbornly high rates of poverty in Europe. So it's good. It's good when you've got players from a completely different culture, who don't just get Celtic, and giving everything for Celtic, but they seem to have embraced, the values, and they seem to know about the circumstances that brought this club into being. So yeah, that's really good to hear.
Yeah, talking about a left winger in Daizen Maeda, who was clearly taking some time to help out with the homeless as well. I believe that he also promised one of the workers that he'll cook next time when he's helping out, which is great to see, or great to hear, rather. From one left winger to another, and it looks as if Celtic are closing in on the signing, finally closing in on the signing of Michel-Ange Balikwisha. He's a player that's been linked with the club for over a year now, since the 2024 summer transfer window. I think that was before he got a really bad injury that curtailed a lot of his
We were
season. He
talking
had two.
about him at the end of last
Yeah,
season.
I remember it. Good memory, Kevin. I know he's a name that's been, him and Kvistgaarden have been the two players that have been spoken about quite a lot over the past year in terms of long-term targets. One of them has, in Kvistgaarden's went to Norwich. The other one looks as if he'll be coming to Celtic. I'll just read what was put on the Celtic Way this morning. Michel-Ange Balikwisha has said his goodbyes at Royal Antwerp ahead of his move to Celtic. The winger, who played no part in the Belgian side's 2-1 win over KV Mechelen yesterday, was invited onto the pitch to say his farewells to the supporters. Pictures have emerged showing his teammates encouraging him to take centre stage as he waved to the fans, and then even grabbed a flagpole to hoist Antwerp's colours in the air. Balikwisha even stayed behind to sign autographs with the fans too. The 24-year-old is set to travel to Scotland to complete a £5 million transfer to Celtic. He's been a long-term target for Brendan Rodgers, with the Irishman finally set to secure the signing. Parkhead Chiefs jetted out to Belgium in recent days. That was reported by Belgian media to conclude the deal to take the left winger to Glasgow. He's been an Antwerp player since 2021. He's made 144 appearances, scored in 29 goals, and his current manager said that discussions are ongoing at a club and a personal level for Balikwisha's move to Celtic. We're finally getting what we wanted, Kevin. After about a year, this player is finally coming to Celtic. Celtic seem to have secured their man. They've convinced him to join the project at Celtic. How are you feeling about this move? Finally looking as if it's coming to fruition.
He's got a good pedigree, has he not?
Yeah, very good. Under 21
a-
international for Belgium.
That's a lot of games and a decent return in goals for a left winger. And he's a good age. That seems not too bad a price either.
I think the price is because he's in the last year of his deal, Kevin, as well. That coupled with the fact that he's had niggling injuries over the past couple of years, but a player that's really highly rated in Belgium and has started the season really well too.
Royal Antwerp are a good side. You know, they've been one of the surprises of Belgian football over the last few years. They've got a decent history. There's only five Belgian clubs have ever made a European club final, and they're one of them. And they beat Mechelen, who are one of only two Belgian sides that have ever won a European trophy.
Wow.
I just throw that in because sometimes I like to remind people, you know, when we're doing down Scottish football, that Belgium, only two clubs have won a European trophy, and in France, only two clubs have won a European trophy. So we're not doing too bad. But yeah, I've got a good feeling about this. Glad it's finally come to fruition, and that could be quite interesting. He does that. He's a proper footballer, Ryan.
Yeah, and I think that's why Celtic are putting a good amount of money into signing him. The only question mark, but there's a couple of question marks actually, but one being injuries. If he's proved that his injuries are away and he's gotten over his long-term injuries, then I've got no doubt that this player's going to be an asset for Celtic. He scores goals, he's pacey, he's an intelligent footballer, he's got international pedigree. He is he's a Belgium under 20, a former Belgium under 21 international. I think he's made 10 or 11 appearances for there, but he's also eligible to play for the Democratic Republic of Congo through his parents as well, so that could maybe be a road that he goes down. I think ideally he would maybe want to be playing for Belgium, but you know, there's an international prospect there if he can't get into the Belgium side. Then again, there is no better time to get into the Belgium squad than now in this transitional phase that they're going through. You know, your likes of Hazards, De Bruyne's are all getting older or they've already retired from international duty, and there's spaces to be had there. So he must see this move as a potential opportunity to get into this Belgium side and ahead of a big year ahead for the Red Devils. The other doubt that I had was the fact that this is a left winger and he's mostly played on the left, where it seems as if right now that Celtic's more pressing issue or pressing area in need of reinforcements is on the right, given that Nygren is playing out of position there, James Forrest is playing there, Yang is sometimes playing there as well. Do you think that this is not the only winger that will come into Celtic in these final 5-6 days? There's got to be a right winger that's coming in as well, surely.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you? Because that's become screamingly obvious over the last few weeks, and I know James Forrest has started the season well, but you know, let's be honest here. When the pitches start getting a bit more uncertain underfoot, and the weather starts coming in, and it starts to sap a bit more energy from you, we can't expect James Forrest. And Brendan Rodgers has alluded to this on a couple of occasions. You can't expect him to be your main threat on the right. There really has to be. It's not just a priority; it's a necessity to have a right winger, an orthodox, recognised right winger in the next 5 days. Let's just wait and see.
Yeah, but an exciting signing, Balikwisha, and finally one that's getting a positive resolution as well, which is great to see.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes you see these players that have been linked for so many windows and it never happens, and you're quite disappointed because you write about them for quite a long time, and you write about what they're like as a player, what they're like as a person as well, and they don't actually make that move to the club. So it looks as if finally Celtic are going to get their man. Good pedigree, good goal scoring record, seems to have cleared up his injury problems too, and probably most importantly, he's match fit already, so he's ready to go straight into a game potentially on Sunday against Rangers at Ibrox, which would be a baptism of fire, but certainly one that I think he would thrive upon. And he wouldn't be the only player to get thrown in at the deep end against Rangers, but it's worked well for some players in the past, hasn't it? Just on, there was another link that was actually getting spoke about during the Livingston game as well. Celtic were linked with a player from Boca Juniors, Marcelo Sarachi, who is playing for the historic Argentinian club. He's a player that's had quite a storied career at different clubs, quite a number of teams that he's played for. He's actually played for Boca Juniors' biggest rivals as well, River Plate in 2017 to 2018. He then moved to RB Leipzig, spent time out on loan at Galatasaray, then at Levante, and then made his move to Boca Juniors before getting linked with Celtic. He's also played 9 times for Uruguay. If Celtic were to sign him, he would become the second Uruguayan to play for Celtic after another left back in Diego Laxalt in the season that shall not be spoke about, despite it getting spoke about quite a lot by me on this podcast from time to time. The links are in Argentina that this would be a loan with an option to buy on the 27-year-old. But just looking at his clubs that he's played for, specifically Galatasaray, Boca Juniors and River Plate, this is a guy that can deal with pressure. Having played with some of the most demanding supporters you're going to get.
Those are badass clubs, as you might say. Yeah.
And Leipzig are a big team in Germany now as well. In modern history, they are a big team.
Of course. Yeah, I remember wee Laxalt. I remember him starting off like a train.
Yep.
With Celtic. And we thought, this guy's brilliant. How the hell did we end up with him? And then it just didn't happen, did it? Like so many others.
I think he was a victim of the rest of the team that season, to be honest. Yes, he had some poor individual performances, but there was no doubt he was a good player. He just was the right player at the wrong time.
Where did he go after it? Did he not achieve
it was Dynamo Kiev or Dynamo Moscow?
Well after he left us. He had a bit of attitude too, as I recall. If you're getting anybody from Boca Juniors, I love Boca Juniors. It's one of my bucket list items.
He went to Dynamo Moscow. I knew it was a Dynamo team that he went to. It was Moscow after Celtic.
Dynamo Moscow, right? Yeah, Dynamo Moscow are in Russia. They're still regarded as like, the kind of football royalty. Although they haven't won anything, their kind of big moments came before the Donna European competition. But they still have a big following in Russia, and a lot of it's quite sentimental. Still a big club. Yeah. He seems to have a pedigree. I just love the idea of us having a former Boca Juniors man on our books.
I don't know if you caught any of the Club World Cup in the summer, but the Boca Junior games in particular were absolutely crazy. And it was like a 12-man for them because of the supporters that they brought to the stadium. My goodness, they were loud. And I can't remember exactly who Boca Juniors beat in a game, or they drew with a big team in a game, but the supporters helped and they made that game. And in a lot of those Club World Cup games, the atmosphere was quite saturated.
It was pretty flat.
But when you put the South American teams in there, but you put the South American teams in there, whether they come from Brazil or Argentina, they bring the noise, and it was a really good advert for the competition with those teams being involved. So he's a guy that understands. I mean, he's crossed the divide. He's played for both Boca Juniors.
Yeah, that can't have happened because their rivalry is fierce. that Boca Juniors River Plate rivalry is very, very fierce. Kind of puts the Celtic Rangers rivalry in the shade a wee bit, given some of the consequences of it off the park over the years. And of course, it's Boca Juniors was Diego Maradona's club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be an interesting move. It'd be another South American coming to Celtic. I've had quite a few recently. They had Luis Palma, although he comes from Central America and Honduras. You've also got Alexandro Bernabe, who played at left back, though I think if Celtic were signing this player, they'd be hoping for a better return than what Alexandro Bernabe got at the club. But I think the thing is, he's 27 years old. He's not as if he's a young player. He's a player that's been playing backup at Boca Juniors as well. So I think it's understood that he would be okay for that move to Celtic on the idea and the understanding that he'd be back up to Kieran Tierney. Now listen, if you're back up to Kieran Tierney, you're still going to get games because he can't last the full 90 minutes at this moment in time, and there will be some need for rotation. So I'm glad that it would seem as if Celtic are addressing this area ahead of whatever European competition they're playing in, and ahead of the domestic campaign too. They'll be able to do that switch around. Although I will say, I was quietly impressed with Hayato Inamura at the weekend, coming in and making his competitive debut.
Yeah, I agree. As I was saying before, I know we've been pretty critical of everybody else over the last few weeks with the lack of transfer activity. But one thing is that I might be wrong here. You might know a bit more about this than me, Ryan. But if you look at all our purchases over the last 10 years or so, we've got a high wastage, I mean, I know we brought in players and sold them for massive profits, and that has underpinned our very good financial position. But my God, we've spent a fair bit of money on players who just haven't got off the ground. The purchases that we've made so far, I think that's been reduced a bit. I expect a plain return from all of them. You can't really say that any of them are project players, could you? Because remember, we just I don't know what was going on in the DNA at Celtic Park for a few years. We just seem to be obsessed with project players.
I would still say there's a couple of project players, but not as many as there was maybe in 2023. Now, the 2023 summer window was, I mean, just look at the amount of players or lack of players that are at the club now. It was a disaster. The one of the last surviving players from that pool of players was Marco Tilio, and he only made 2 appearances for Celtic. You had Kwon, you had Yang, who was probably one of the most successful signings out of that.
That's
Luis
right.
Palma, Mike Nawrowski, Gustav Lagerbielke. People can have their own personal opinions on these players, but they just didn't work out at Celtic, and it was a bit of a disaster of a transfer window. And I actually think that's where Celtic's best business has been done so far this summer, is getting a lot of the, I'm not going to say deadwood, because I think that's unfair to some of the players.
No, I agree.
They're still Celtic players at the end of the day, but players that just weren't going to get game time, that weren't going to make an impact. I think they've actually done a good job in getting a lot of those players out of the door and off the wage bill, whether that be on loan or permanently.
Yeah, here's hoping that. I'm not saying there's no room for project players. Of course, I'm not. This is the environment that we're trading in and we play in. We've always got it to be alive to a very good prospect. But again, I'd like to see a greater return from the many millions that we pay each year in maintaining Lennoxtown, because we've had next to nothing over the last few years for the outlay. But that's a discussion for another time, because sometimes I look at the bench and I look at the caliber of the coaches, our coaching staff around Brendan Rodgers, and you just wonder, are we set up properly to develop Scottish talent?
Well, thankfully, one of the Scottish talents that's coming through and actually making an impact is Dane Murray, despite being 22. He seems to have got
actually,
over.
I wanted to mention him a few minutes ago
Absolutely.
when you were asking about who had impressed on Saturday.
He was actually the player that I was sort of alluding to.
Yeah, I know.
I think he's impressed quite a few people.
I missed that. He was good. He really was.
He made one mistake at the end where he gave the ball away, but he immediately atoned for his error by making the tackle. I think it was on Silla. Silla was through on goal.
Yes.
And it is as clean as you get. Clean as a whistle.
Yeah. And that he kind of tired a little bit towards the end.
Brendan Rodgers said that after the game as well.
But he put a lot into the game and he looked comfortable. He looked as if he should be there, or more importantly, he looked as if he thought he should be there. I was delighted to see him play well.
Yep, and Colby Donovan as well, making his competitive debut. That's good to see, and he'll get quite a bit more game time in these next 12 weeks, especially with rotation, because if Tony Ralston's going to be the number one spot, then if there's any rotation needed, then Colby Donovan will take that place at right back. So a big moment for him. Unfortunate that he's not going to be going out on loan, or it doesn't look as if he'll be going out on loan to Dundee as was projected, but you know, he's going to get a chance at Celtic, and that will have been what he's been wanting. I saw that he posted on Instagram about how delighted he was to make his debut, and it was great to see in the comments some of his fellow academy prospects commenting, but some of the first team players as well, the likes of Kieran Tierney and Arne Engels, all congratulating him from coming on the pitch. I think that gives you a little bit of an insight into how harmonious the dressing room is, despite there being moving bodies here, there and everywhere. The players that are there are a tight group, they're a tight-knit group, they're a bit like a family, and that was good to see, and it's good to see they're back in one of their own, and hopefully the first of many appearances for Colby Donovan. The last thing I want to talk about before we end today's show is tomorrow's game. It's already the biggest game of the season, isn't it, Kevin? It's massive. It's whether or not Celtic get into the Champions League or they'll be playing in the Europa League if they get knocked out tomorrow. The club are in Kazakhstan. Brendan Rodgers has said that they're doing everything by the book, basically, in terms of Scottish. They're doing all the time zones. They're doing everything in Scotland time rather than in Kazakhstan time, so that it doesn't negatively affect their preparations by changing things here, there and everywhere. How are you feeling about tomorrow's game, and do you think Celtic will go through against Kairat?
We should go through. 2 or 3 of their key players are going to be missing. I know that they'll have a bit of a go. And that should open things up for us. But, God, Ryan, first of all, we haven't beaten Kazakhstani opposition in Kazakhstan in the 3 previous occasions. And, I just look at the roll call. Maribor, Ferencváros, Cluj, AEK Athens, Midtjylland at this stage, and we weren't properly prepared. We didn't have the players in we should have had, and I'm not making any bold predictions. We should win, but we are not coming to this game in as good a place or as assured and as confident as we should be. And I know, I know there's no. We were given the qualification spot, which a couple of years ago we wouldn't have expected, but that's what it is. We could have had a tougher draw, and that's good, but we just didn't make the most of it in the first game. And I'm sounding a bit downbeat here. I think we should win. We should win. But I'm not taking anything for granted. because I've been here too many times with opposition that we should have. I mean, those 6 teams that I mentioned at that stage, we should have won about 3 of them at least, and we didn't. And this team look, they know what they're doing. They're nobody's
coming up
mugs.
against a side that this is their biggest game in their history by a country mile. This is massive for them. They're playing for something bigger than just European qualification.
And they've
They're
fought
playing
to get
for
here. They've fought 3 rounds to get here against opposition, especially Slovan Bratislava, who would have expected to beat them as well. So, yeah, all right. We should win, and I think we will. It'll be nip and tuck, though. I don't think it's going to be a comfortable evening.
No, I don't think so either. But I just hope that Celtic come out on the other side as winners. Kevin, thank you so much for joining me today. Really, really appreciate it. Before we go, guys, I just want to bring to your attention the current offer that we're doing on the Celtic Way. I'll just bring it up just now. You for just £1. For just £1, you can get 6 months of access on the Celtic Way website. Plus, and this is completely free of charge, if you pledge your £1, you'll get a free Kieran Tierney print from renowned football artist made by Frankie. It's an A3 print. You can see all the details there. You see on the top right hand side Tierney celebrating. On the left hand side, he's got the megaphone from the Green Brigade, the picture of him in the centre, and him wearing a scarf at the bottom. So there's loads of lovely wee details about Kieran Tierney. Truly is one of Celtic's own, and you can grab that. All you need to do is go to www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. All the T's and C's are there when you click or when you go into that link, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe, and get involved, guys. We really appreciate everybody that's joined us so far with this latest offer. But if you want to join us, just follow that link and get involved, and you'll get 6 months of access as well, which will have you covered for the next 2 transfer windows, I believe. So that'll be you sorted with whatever business Celtic do, both in this window, all their Champions League campaign, and in the next transfer window as well. So you're covered for that 6-month period. Kevin, thank you very much for joining me this morning.
No bother, Ryan. Onward
and fingers crossed that Celtic... Yeah, absolutely, and fingers crossed Celtic get that qualification. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time at 10 a.m. to discuss all things Celtic ahead of that massive game against FC Kairat in Kazakhstan. It's a 5:45 kick-off tomorrow, the 26th of August. Come here at 10 a.m. and join us for all the latest news and views as we look ahead to that big game. But until then, have a very good day, guys, and we'll see you all tomorrow morning. Cheers.